It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome back to the Land Commander Gulf War III update for April 5th, 2026. First and foremost, happy Easter everybody. Trying to get in the spirit a little bit. For those of you who don't know me, I actually have a very soft spot in my life for rabbits. I have 3 of them at my house. They're wonderful little creatures. So happy Easter to us all. And on that note, I actually have some good news to start out today. And that is, let me make sure I'm using the right. Oh man. Well, that's a little embarrassing. Whoops. Okay, yeah, so just to start, okay, there we go, sorry. So the good news here on Easter Sunday is that, as I mentioned during the last video I made, an F-15E had been shot down over Western Iran. The pilot and weapon system officer had ejected and made it to the ground. But when I had recorded the video, the combat search and rescue operation was still very much underway. Not long after uploading the video, the pilot had been reported recovered safe and was back in friendly territory. And at that time, the Wizzo was still missing. Well, I can tell you now, if you didn't already hear, that it has been announced that it was last night that the Wizzo was found alive and has been extracted from Iran safely and is back in friendly territory. So congratulations to the brave men and women who conducted this incredible Herculean operation to get these guys out of there. I might do a whole video on this operation at a later date because it is just phenomenal what went on to get these guys out of there. You can see here on the map, see if I can actually get you to see the mouse. Yeah, I kind of can't. Well, anyway, you can see the map there of Iran. That is where the pilot and Wizzo went down, right? That's 200 miles inland from the border of Iraq or the Persian Gulf or anything like that. So just imagine, we've got to get aircraft and personnel and supplies to keep them going all the way up to that location in order to get our guys out. We're doing it in contested space. Obviously, the Iranians were just as eager to get these guys as we were. So you had videos coming out of civilians combing the mountains looking for these guys, IRGC forces moving in, the area was being shut down, all the roads and other ground lines of communications being cut, cash rewards being offered for them. And in the meantime, the U.S. is surging, flowing in all kinds of forces into Western Iraq, all kinds of air support. There's all these videos that have come out of extremely low-level flying by U.S. rotary wing and fixed-wing aircraft. There's videos of U.S. helicopters refueling off a C-130, a couple hundred feet off the ground in broad daylight. This is not normally how our forces would operate in such a combat zone, but when the life of a downed airman is on the line, this is what our guys go and do. And it is beyond impressive. And so not only is the pilot and Wizzo 200 miles in, and the Wizzo was obviously there quite a bit longer, to facilitate getting this operation done, we actually flew C-130s, which is the fixed wing four-engine aircraft you see in the picture there. We flew those in to the spot on the map, created a temporary forward arming and refueling base where C-130s were able to disgorge Little Bird helicopters. So that helicopter that you see coming out of the back of the aircraft and the one that's flying behind it, those were flown in a C-130 to a site in Iran, taken out, loaded up, and then SEAL team members boarded them to conduct the search and rescue operations from this spot there. When they finally got the Wizzo back and were going to evacuate him, One of the aircraft apparently was stuck in the dirt and could not take off. The other one needed to be refueled, and the time to do so, I guess given circumstances on the ground, I'll say there's actually conflicting reports. I've heard that both of them were stuck in the dirt. Other reports are one needed refueling and there simply wasn't time. The other was it was also stuck. Either way, all of this is occurring while under fire. There's all these videos of long convoys of civilian and military vehicles streaming towards this location, and U.S. air power just flying in and laying down fire. And look, killing civilians is never a good look, never a good call. But I will say, anyone who was driving towards a downed U.S. airman as U.S. forces were converging on it was just asking to get a missile put in him. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. Everybody's trying to get this guy, and we're gonna do whatever it takes to get him back. So that's just how that is. Because they couldn't get these C-130s off the ground, 3 more aircraft had been brought in to actually get everybody out, and ultimately 2 C-130s, and I believe 2 Little Bird helicopters had to be blown up in place so the Iranians couldn't capture them as propaganda pieces, potentially get technology out of them, etc. And I had originally assumed that the forces on the ground had used explosives they had brought in to do it. It sounds like actually a B-1B, actually 2 B-1Bs on station above Iran dropped a total of 40 1,000-pound JDAMs on the area to make sure that nothing of value could be recovered. And you can see the devastation up there in the picture. And also at the beginning of this video, there was a clip of the devastation and how everything had just been leveled. And now that I know the B-1s have done it and looking at that level of carnage, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, it's an incredibly impressive showing of bravery, courage, and the incredible competency of these men and women. And yeah, I mean, you don't have to like Trump or our favorite guy, Pete Hegseth, or this war or any of that stuff, but you've got to give some serious respect and admiration for the men and women who, when the call came to go save their comrade, they didn't hesitate and they got the job done, and they did it under incredible circumstances. So congratulations everybody, and I am incredibly grateful that our 2 downed servicemen are back behind friendly lines. So happy Easter to us, happy Easter to our returned pilots and their families. And with that, we're gonna move on to the spiciness of Gulf War III, which means it's gonna be a little less good news. So let's move on along. Whoops. So at the beginning of the video today, you saw, Iran is winning the meme war. You saw a clip of some Iranian propaganda. If you guys haven't seen these videos that are coming out, these Lego videos that Iran is churning out like crazy, they are amazing. They are really crushing the meme war. And I just cannot believe, like, where are America's meme armies? Like, I thought we were the king of the meme battle space. And again, this is, we're in fifth generation warfare, right? It's not just the land, the sea, and the air. It is all domains. So space, cyberspace, the information space, right? Memes are part of that. So, the Iranians are out here just kicking our asses with these videos. They are just brilliant. There was even one where they had a little E3 Sentry on the ground getting blown up. Chef's kiss, I gotta say. So all I gotta say on that note is, Pete, buddy, I've been on your department's website. I've been on your YouTube page. I've seen the videos you guys are putting out. Yeah, they're just really not cutting it. They're just really not cutting it. You were like 90-second one, this is the Department of War. Dude, like not that impressive. And then you've got one about the pastors and how you're gonna do, I don't know how they report, and it's like a promotional video, it's not you just talk. These are terrible videos. They're not doing it. Nobody's inspired by these. Nobody's even laughing, except laughing maybe at you at how you're making this crap during a time of war. So anyway, Pete, SecDef Hegseth, you gotta get the meme armies mobilized. This country has so much meme potential. You just got to turn it loose because you are just getting crushed by this constantly. It's embarrassing. Seriously, it's embarrassing. Okay, so we're losing the meme war. What else is going on? What else is going on here? Well, not only are we losing the meme war, but U.S. forces have effectively abandoned 5th Fleet and CENTCOM headquarters in Bahrain. This is a huge military facility the United States has operated, I believe since 1972 or 3, when we took it over from the British. I believe that's how that went. So this has been a critical linchpin of U.S. Military presence, operations, soft and hard power in a sense, for a very long time. It's been a linchpin of every operation we've conducted in the region. Just where it's located right there on the Gulf like that, was a very visible symbol and presence of U.S. hegemony and U.S. That the U.S. was going to maintain the rules-based order, was going to make sure that the world's ocean stayed open and free. Since the beginning of this conflict, Iran has launched numerous attacks at this facility. And at this point, as I understand it, just in the last few days, the last 1,500 people who were at this base, along with their families, were very rapidly evacuated and flown back to Virginia. So rapidly that I guess people were just in their homes, and then some guy came up in a vehicle and said, grab whatever you can, you gotta go now. And so 5th Fleet headquarters is no longer in Bahrain. It is back in Virginia, as I understand it. So that's very symbolic, right? The United States is having to very much physically withdraw its personnel from all these locations. And even before the final evacuation that just went on, I've talked about how U.S. forces across the region have had to disperse from all these bases that we've built up over the years to things like office complexes, hotels. Even that isn't working because, just as I've suspected, it does appear that very much so the Iranians are hitting these hotels, these office buildings, as they're getting intel at where we've dispersed our forces. So we've pulled forces out of a lot of the cities, out of Kuwait City, out of the city in Bahrain, and a lot of them have been pulled back to the United States. Others have been pulled further back in the region. There's a lot of symbolism there, right? That sort of runs in the face heavily of what you constantly hear Secretary Hegseth and the president and other administrations say about how we have been razor, laser, dazzle, razzle, blazzled, focused on just exploding everything in Iran. And we've done that. We've exploded it all. There's nothing less. Their navy's sunk. Their rocket launchers are gone. It's all gone. Yet here we are, running away from one of our main bases in the region. And look, I mean, if there's anything to learn from Ukraine, it's that these big congregations of forces, assets, equipment, material, anywhere near the front line or really anywhere near the combat zone is very much at risk and really probably isn't going to work out. Both the Russians and Ukrainians have demonstrated that time and time again. When you start to have big static facilities with lots of people and equipment there, they become prime targets, and in today's world, it becomes very easy to hit them. And especially something like this. I mean, it's been here since the British were running the show, right? I mean, the Iranians know exactly where this place is. But I guess where I'm really going with this is just like the E3 getting destroyed on the ground, out in the open by a very precise Iranian strike, which, may I also add, we are still using that airbase, and as far as I can tell, we are still basically just doing the same exact thing to try to protect our aircraft, which is just kind of move them around the airbase and park them in places. But there's also only so many places you can park a lot of these big aircraft. So yeah, we pulled everybody out of 5th Fleet headquarters, but then we have a bunch of airmen and valuable equipment just sitting on tarmacs, practically down the road from this place. Where I'm really going with this is, we knew that in today's world, you can't just leave your stuff in big piles where everybody knows where they are, because they're just going to get hit. You have to disperse your forces, you have to do it smartly, you have to cover your aircraft, and you need to do it ahead of time, right? That's the thing that's really been the most, to me, the most problematic and discouraging about the way our force posture has had to move around in terms of, where we're basing people. All of these people should have been moved way ahead of time. If we knew, and it's pretty, I think everybody thought about it, that we were not gonna be able to protect, say, the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain from endless missile and drone strikes. There's just no intercept system that works 100% of the time. You only have so many interceptors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why didn't we do all this ahead of time? Because here's the thing, having to disperse forces like this in this haphazard way, under fire while the war is being prosecuted, creates all kinds of points of friction, right? It makes communications harder, it eats up people's time, things get misplaced. Just even getting getting your comms and stuff set up when you get to your new facility, right? Well, that takes time, to get the Cisco desk phone set up and make sure the big screens on the wall are there and you've got antennas on the roof so you can talk to the satellites and all that. That all takes time, and every minute that you're busy doing that is another minute you're not supporting the war fighter in the field. So just as it's amazing how the Pentagon, until just now it seems, there's all these requests to industry to start producing and submitting proposals for prefab shelter systems to be, rapidly sent into theater. All of this should have been done ahead of time. I don't know what the fuck the Pentagon has been doing. I mentioned every YouTuber in the military world has been calling for more aircraft shelters at these master bases for years. And I say that because if YouTubers knew it, then certainly people in the Pentagon knew it. But the Pentagon refused to do it. The Pentagon refused to basically learn any of the lessons that we had some of the best access to learning from, right? We had such a relationship with the Ukrainians, especially those first few years, that it's just really disheartening to see that this is what it's come to. And you got to wonder, will we ever even go back to this base? You also have to wonder too, so the base is empty. Did we get all the sensitive equipment out? Did we get all the sensitive documents out? Did we destroy that stuff if we couldn't? What non-sensitive but important stuff did we leave? Who's even protecting the base? Are the gates locked? Is there anybody at the gates? Can people just go in? Will US or Bahraini or anybody else prioritize intercepts of missiles and drones targeted at this facility now that it's empty, or are they just gonna let it just, get pummeled? I gotta be real, if I was the Iranians, I would probably, I would just pummel this place into the smithereens. What a propaganda coup. You can see there in that satellite photo, that's from earlier on in the war, as is the picture of that building burning, but this is the kind of devastation that's been wrought upon 5th Fleet headquarters in many facilities throughout the Middle East. Kuwait in particular. Kuwait has a lot of US military installations because it was a prime staging area for flowing forces and material into Iraq prior to the invasion in 2003, during the invasion, and then during the prolonged occupation and counterinsurgency campaign. Hundreds of thousands of US forces and just a massive amount of equipment material flew through Kuwait. Would arrive there, stage, acclimate to the climate, get additional training, and then be flowed usually up Highway 1 into southern Iraq and then to wherever they need to go, or airlifted in. Most of these bases, though, because that was their function and they were built during the Global War on Terror, have very, very minimum protection from anything but the most rudimentary sort of, insurgent, ground-based attack. So a lot of these facilities have had to have been abandoned. They've been hit numerous times by the Iranians. The Iranians, again, know where these places are and have just been going at them relentlessly. Now, this obviously doesn't mean the U.S. can't continue to prosecute this war, but it does highlight the challenges of today's battle space, of fighting wars in today's world, where all of this ability to see the battle space and then bring down precision fires on it or drones is so prevalent. There's yeah. This is the reality of things. We had a lot of assumptions built into how we built things that we use today at a time when the threat from persistent ISR and the ability to then vector and precision fires and drones just did not exist. And we're seeing the effects of that now. And there's a lot of lessons that we're gonna need to hopefully learn and then apply to potentially future conflicts. And I've actually got a whole idea for a video about like what this would mean from both the Chinese and American perspective in a war against those two nations. Anywho, Fifth Fleet is abandoned, and beyond that, you know, Iran continues, boy, that text can't be seen, but basically Iran continues to lash out, again, not with the same rate of fire that they started with, but with very precise, they're hitting targets with a lot of precision. Yeah, they're having things intercepted, but they're getting things through, and what they are hitting has had tangible, noticeable effects on the battle space and the broader fifth dimension, you know, battle space, you know, information space, all of that. And right there you can see it was just today, or maybe it was yesterday, I think the Kuwaiti Petroleum Ministry was hit by a drone. You can see it burning there. The Kuwaiti Finance Ministry was hit. Another Kuwaiti desalinization and power plant have been hit. So the Iranians, despite all of this withering fire they've been under for the last 4+ weeks, 5 weeks now, I guess, by the Israelis and Americans, despite all of that, the Iranians continue to demonstrate that they have regenerated robust C2 ISR capabilities organically, that they are continuing to receive outside support from actors such as Russia and China, both in terms of intelligence and actual material support. I mentioned the Russians, you know, sending upgraded Shahed drones that they're manufacturing to the Iranians, resulting in the Israelis blowing up, striking ports north of Tehran. And not only have the Iranians demonstrated that they've done all of that, that they still have the weaponry to take that information and then put it to kinetic effect and hold a vast amount of the region's critical infrastructure and thus its populations and financial well-being at risk. That has not changed since we last talked, and they are just demonstrating it again and again and again. All of which is to say, they still very much control the Strait of Hormuz. They continue to maintain it as a de facto checkpoint that is under their control. And not only do they control it, and they're taking payments and allowing some ships through, there are all kinds of negotiations going on between outside the Gulf nations to continue to and nations within the Gulf, right? The Iranians are negotiating with countries to let their tankers through. And the more of that happens, the more entrenched those kinds of things become, right? The longer this goes on, the more the Iranians can let more ships through, the more deals they can ink with institutions, with corporations, with countries, the more status quo this becomes, and the harder it becomes for the United States to pull the status quo back to where it was. And this is a screenshot from just a couple hours ago. You can see basically nothing's moving, and what seems to be hugging the Iranian coastline. So, once again, April 5th, 2026, I guess happy Easter to Iran. You didn't get our pilots, but you got the real prize still. You've got the Strait of Hormuz under your control. Oman, which is the nation right at the tip on the southern side of the strait, is apparently in some level of talks with Iran to negotiate some sort of potential bilateral agreement to control the straits together, which, I mean, yeah, I guess if it gets the oil flowing, great, but that is going to then undermine all the other rules-based orders around the world and on the world's oceans, because now two countries that used to abide by the international sea lane there are now just going to control it together. Maybe they're charging tolls for everything. After that, who's next? Singapore at the Strait of Malacca? Are they going to start charging tolls, right? So not a great Easter strategically for the United States and the rules-based world order. Oops. And As you know, as Iran, continues to strike back throughout the Gulf, the Northwest salient continues to rage on. The Houthis have now launched 5 or 6 attacks into Israel from Yemen. They've refrained from hitting shipping in the Red Sea thus far. I want to also add that the Europeans are gearing up their task force in the Red Sea to counter the Houthis if they start taking shots. So just as I said last video, despite all the proclamations from all these countries around the world that they don't want to be involved, this isn't their war, you're seeing this slow creep of their involvement and their commitments, right? ISR assets in theater, defensive missions being flown. Now they're talking about the European task force that's already in the Red Sea being plussed up and being ready to protect shipping from the Houthis, on and on and on. Every day that this drags on, more nations will get drug in deeper and deeper and deeper. And also the more potential for Iran to cut more deals goes on and on and on. And you can see, yeah, Israel continues to continues to push north with its ground invasion of southern Lebanon, pushing to the Litani. They continue to launch all kinds of strikes throughout Lebanon and in and around Beirut. Iranians and the Lebanese are definitely shooting back at Israel aggressively. One of the interesting things the Iranians have figured out is that if you load up your high-flying ballistic missiles with cluster munitions, you can defeat the Israeli intercept system, right? Because what happens is the ballistic missile comes up, and then before it's intercepted, it opens up and deploys hundreds of little tiny bomblets, the clusters of munitions, right? And they come down and they land all over the ground. They're very problematic for like civilian populations, because just like landmines, you wind up with lots of small explosives all over that are hard to find. But they're very effective at covering wide areas that you might need to deny the enemy use of. Airfields are one of the number one uses of cluster munitions, but also things like dumping them outside of, along roads and stuff, or key choke points, or just defeating ballistic, intercept systems and raining cluster munitions down on cities. And I was just watching this morning footage of the aftermath of strikes into Haifa, and these are both coming from the Iranians and from Hezbollah. So the Israelis remain very much under daily, constant strikes from south, north, and east, and that doesn't seem to be turning the Israelis even a little bit. They have continued to make strikes into Iran. They've struck pharmaceutical facilities, medical facilities. There's now reports that the U.S. and Israelis are actually striking facilities on campuses. Things like plasma research departments and things like that are being hit. And the Israelis have said, as soon as Trump says go, we'll go blow up all the power plants and all that. So despite taking constant fire and more of that fire seeping through their intercept system, I want to also say we're seeing more and more videos of the Israelis shooting one interceptor up to take out a target, suggesting their inventory of interceptors is getting quite low, because generally when you're doing intercepts, you want to do a salvo shot. So if one missile is coming in, you want to send 2 or 3 interceptors up to make sure you get that missile, because intercepting a missile with a missile is very complicated and hard, as I'm sure you could imagine. And you want to make sure you get it. So if you have a full stockpile of interceptors, you're going to salvo fire it. But as you deplete that inventory, you're going to start firing less and less per intercept. And so now that we're seeing more and more footage of Israelis using one intercept per incoming munition, it suggests that the narrative of running out of dwindling stockpiles of interceptors is true. And that's probably true throughout the region. I don't think that's a uniquely Israeli problem. Anyway, the Northwest salient continues to rage. The Israelis seem dead set on creating this buffer zone. Good luck with that. I'm not saying their ground forces can't get to the Litani. I just don't think they're going to be able to hold it without great effort. Again, Hezbollah was founded decades ago with the sole purpose of fighting Israel, and that's basically all they've done since. I don't think they're going to just roll over on this one. Plus, people don't like it when you take their fucking land. Oh, and the Israelis blew up a cop car in Gaza today. For whatever that's worth. Just to remind everybody that that's still going on too, right? So, yeah, so we're gonna just kind of wrap up here with this. Yesterday, Trump once again threw down an ultimatum. 48 hours, he said to Iran, you reopen that strait or I'm gonna, blow you back to the Stone Age, level everything, let it go. So that would be tomorrow. I don't think he does it. But I do think that something is gonna spin up here soon. Some kind of kinetic operation to get the strait is gonna spin up. But I don't think tomorrow we're gonna wake up and find out that he's taken out half the Iranian electric grid. I could be wrong, we don't know. But that's my prediction that we're not gonna do that. But at some point, all these forces we've flown in the region, the Tripoli ARG, all the additional aerial assets that we've put into theater, all the munitions, all this stuff we've flown in there. Oh, and the Ford, which I had said was coming home, at least for now is not coming home. They've left Croatia and it appears they're going to be returned right back to either the Eastern Med or down into the Red Sea, at least until the George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group arrives on station. But it could also be that we keep the Ford out and now we have 3 carrier strike groups in region, which is an incredible amount of firepower in addition to everything else there. So I don't think he goes full total war tomorrow, but he might. And boy, if he does, get ready. Because if the Iranians think that, if Trump thinks the Iranians are not going to just wreak havoc in the region after such a move, he's a fool. But I just don't think he's going to do it. He keeps making these threats. I don't think he's not going to keep escalating in terms of the kinds of strikes he's doing. And I do think kinetic operations in the Gulf, in the Strait are imminent. A new phase of them. I just don't know that tomorrow is going to be, blow it back to the Stone Age day. We'll see. Okay, I think that's probably about it. Yep. So, hey, guys, happy Easter. Congratulations to the men and women of the United States Armed Forces for getting our guys out of Iran. That's great news. Hegseth, bro, get your meme armies going. This is embarrassing. What are you doing, bro? Other than that, yeah, the war is spicy as ever. Escalation continues on all sides. There is nothing is indicating to me that the escalation is not going to just continue. And while I do not think tomorrow is going to be, go back to the Stone Age day in Iran, I do think if it's not tomorrow, any day now, all of this firepower we brought to bear has to start doing something. And I maintain that my thinking around taking these smaller islands in and around the strait and fortifying our allies' coastlines and things like that is the best possible way to do that. But we'll see what everybody decides. There is always a possibility they negotiate something and figure this out. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think next time, unless it does go crazy on Monday, I'd like to do a video about where all this might wind up, because there's a couple of outcomes I see, and one of them is like a pretty wild one that on the surface looks like it's a disaster for the United States, but could actually be the salvation of the American empire. Okay, happy Easter, guys. It's been the Land Commander Gulf War 3 update for April 5th, 2026. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. As always, reach for the lasers and embrace the lights.